What's going on, guys? Here we are back at it again with another video. I just want to say a couple of things. This video is going to be a little bit different from the ones I normally film. Well, first of all, one, I am a little bit sick. As you can probably tell from my voice, it sounds terrible. I do have a bit of a cough and a sore throat, but nothing too major to worry about.
Hello, darkness, my old friend.
But I wanted to film this video before prices change, because prices tend to change with Yu-Gi-Oh very, very quickly. And so this video too is a little bit different in the sense where it's more of like a I don't want to say like pricing guide, but like just bring some awareness about how some of the meta staples have been trending recently, because I think that right now is actually a really good time to buy some of these staples if you haven't already. This is not a financial advisement channel or anything like that. I don't really know the card prices perfectly. Like, obviously, if I say something might stay this low or might end up going lower, it might actually end up going higher, or vice versa. So don't take what I say for certainty. It's just more of like what I see, having played this game for a couple years competitively, kind of watching the market and stuff like that. So with that being said, I'm going to jump on into it. I want to start off with some of the meta staples that like normally are really solid, and right now are just actually really cheap. So for those who don't know, the best time to actually buy a lot of really good meta staples is actually when they suck in the meta. So one thing to mention is like Ash, the prismatic, specifically the prismatic secret version right now is about $8 to $10, and especially if you can get it locally, you might even be able to get it for a little bit less. So that's actually a card that's actually pretty like low in price right now, I'd say, because right now Ash isn't that great in the meta. The fact that you can get one of the higher rarity versions for a pretty low price is actually insane, because back when this card was actually like a staple in every single deck, it was, even the commons were like $20. I mean, you'd see like the ultras like $30. Any foiled version of this card was at least $30 per copy. So the fact that you can now get a playset for less than that is insane. Next up on the list is actually probably kind of a one that people might not like that much. It's the gold version of Droll. I know, okay, ew, gold, all that kind of stuff, I get it. But there was a point in time, I don't know how many of you remember, where this card was like $15 to $20 a copy. That's insane, especially for a gold rare. And the fact that right now it's $3. So let's just say you don't want the gold, that's totally fine. Just pick up like a Tama rare for like $1 or $2. Because when some of these staples I'm mentioning, when they actually are like the stoppers to like a lot of like meta decks, these cards raise up like crazy. The fact that Droll only had like one more reprint since is actually pretty crazy, and the fact that it was only a rare makes it so that I would say that right now Droll's a really good pickup, because right now it's not seeing a lot of play in the meta. Next up, another card that's actually a complete like meta-defying staple when it is actually in the meta is Lancia. So I don't know if how many of you remember, but back when like PK, Brave PK was going around, Flew Under, all that kind of stuff, Lancia was a pretty solid staple in the meta, and that card is about $15 to $20 per copy as well. And Lancia hasn't had a reprint, or at least not like a good reprint, since the secret that it's had already. The fact that right now it's about $5 or less is actually really nice, because you can actually pick it up. What's nice about that too is that it's actually one of the higher rarities, as well as with the Ash one. So it's pretty, I wouldn't say guaranteed, but it's a pretty solid that like even if it got reprinted again, this would still be the most expensive version of the card, aside from Ash obviously, because there's like the OG print secret. But this is one of the cards that would still stay up at higher in price than like some of the other ones would. Unless it gets like a crazy, like, I don't know, like Starlight or like Ulti or something like that. But that seems kind of far-fetched for Lancia. Next up is Spellbound. This card's $5 right now. Somewhere between $3 and $5, somewhere around there. And I wouldn't call this like a meta-defining staple or anything like that. I don't know how good or how bad this card's actually going to do in the meta. But the fact that it came out of like one of the most recent sets, and it's a secret, and it's less than $5, is actually pretty good grounds for picking it up, because even if it were to keep on going down, you don't really lose much out of it. You spend like $10 to have like a meta staple, just in case it does end up actually doing something. If it does end up actually doing something, this card will easily be like $10 or $15 per copy, and you basically just bought 3 copies for the price of 1. Speaking of really cheap secrets that came out of a main set, Salesman is insane right now. It's like anywhere between $1 and $3 for this card, and this card can very easily see some play if there are cards that like decks are concerned about, especially when like Nib actually re-enters the format or something like that. Salesman's a really good card for protecting you against Nib, but the fact that it's already started at a secret means pretty good things, in the sense where like this will probably stay like one of the more expensive versions of the card, even if it were to get reprinted in the future. Same thing with Small World. I mean, all these cards just came out of like pretty recent sets, and they're all secrets, and they're all relatively cheap, which is pretty insane to me in my opinion. So I mean, Small World's like roughly between $3 to $5 for the Bode copy. I think maybe like 1 or 2 for like the Megaton copy. So for that, you can kind of take your pick, because they're both secrets. Typically the OG prints tend to do a little bit better, but with a card this cheap, I don't think it really matters that much. So whichever one you kind of get your hands on is totally fine, but I'd recommend having at least like a playset of this card, because this card can see some pretty crazy play, especially in the sense where it can literally search any monster card as long as you have the adequate bridge and the right cards to start with in hand. So it turns a lot of hand traps into combo pieces and extra combo pieces into hand traps, which is kind of insane in my opinion. Next up on the list are some cards that I am a little bit unsure about, but I think overall they're just good pickups just to have in general if you don't have them already. So next up is the DPE, well, more or less the prismatic version, which is about $5 per copy right now. I think the bowed one is still about $8 per copy. So you're not really missing much like value there as far as like either if it's prismatic or if it's like OG print. But I don't know, does anyone else remember when OG print DP was $80? Like, I remember that shit was insane.
Oh, I remember.
And now it's $5. Oh, how the mighty have fallen, right? And on top of that, you now have a secret Fusion Destiny for $4, which is pretty insane. You can pick up the whole DPE package essentially for right around like $20 or something like that, like a little bit less than $20. And that's even if you pick up like $1 versions of like the Celestial and the Dasher. Plus, this engine's pretty insane in general because they haven't hit any part of it. Like, they did hit Fusion Destiny down to 2 for a little while, but they brought it back up to 3 and they didn't even hit Celestial anyway. So you still have a really solid package here in most decks, especially like in Rogue. And I get it, you know, Pred has been banned, so this package isn't like as accessible as it used to be, which is totally fine because still opening Fusion Destiny and ending off your combo with Fusion Destiny is pretty insane. And I get that right now, maybe it's not that great because the Bystials are all around here, the Shizu Fairy stuff is everywhere. But once that stuff kind of like leaves the meta, once tier kind of gets hit, maybe less decks will run like the Shizu Fairy stuff. Maybe you won't have to worry about Bystials or whatever. But even then, if someone's gonna Bystial you on your turn, it's probably gonna be like in the middle of your combo, not necessarily towards the end. So you can still have DPE like ready for your opponent on their turn. Overall, I'd say probably not the best with all the Bystial stuff running around, but it's just in general good to have. Plus the Celestial draw too means that your opponent has to deal with a lot of different stuff in your graveyard before they can actually address this problem, which means they have to hit at least like 2 to 3 cards in your graveyard with Bystials, which means that a lot of their targets are going to be going towards stuff you probably really don't care that much about. Next up on the list are going to be cards that I would say are like about middle of the line risks. The stuff I mentioned before are kind of all the bangers, so all the stuff that like you pretty much like are almost not going to lose any value on these cards on, or if you do, it's very minimal, maybe just like a few bucks here and there at worst. But the next set of cards are its potential to lose a little bit more money depending on reprints, depending on what Konami decides to do, etc. So the first card on this list I would say is going to be Ultimate Slayer. This card I thought was going to be a main staple in the meta like for a while when it first came out. I thought this card was cracked. I still think it's insane. I still think it's a really good card, especially for the price tag that it's at now. I thought it was a good card at like $60 to $80, but the fact that right now it's at $22 is insane. It's in between $22 to $25. It's a phenomenal card. As well as having triples of these cards means you can have access to like a lot of different things, like an extra draw on your extra deck. You can have a pop with Entis. I see some people even run like the Evil Twin, Sunny, and Kiss a Kill combo, all that kind of stuff, which is kind of cool because you get a free banish. And I might be a bit more biased on this one because I actually really like this card a lot, not only for its capabilities but also for its artwork. As you can see, I might just be a little bit biased here. Maybe just a little bit biased here. Like I said, I actually really love this card. I think this card's a phenomenal card, and I think that it being at $22 for just the baseline secret is pretty insane. I think that this card has a lot of potential in the future. Although, because with this card, the reason why I put it in mid-range is because it has a bit of more of a race towards like, will it see a reprint first or will it see play first? Because it came out in Power of the Elements, which came out middle of this year, I think, like June, July, somewhere around there. Which means that it's kind of getting close for like it's time for a reprint, because it's very possible that at the beginning of next year Konami puts it in like the March reprint set or something like that. Then it becomes an ultra, and that brings the secret value down to like $15 or something like that. But I think that even if you decided to wait on this card for a little bit longer and maybe pick it up at like 20s or 15s, or if you find a good deal on them for like $15 to $17 a pop, I think that's pretty solid. And I think that that's overall not really gonna cost you a whole lot of money, and I think the card in general is really good, especially in like stun decks or back row heavy decks, which I think might start to see a lot more play now that tier elements is not really being hit. Next up is I want to bring up another version of Droll, the Ultra. Right now this card is about $13 to $15 for the Ultra, which is pretty insane because when the card was a meta staple, it was about $30 per copy of this card. So if you wanted like a higher end version of Droll, I would say it's probably like one of the higher rarities aside from obviously CR or Ulti, for a pretty solid price. And now you're not worried about running like golds or weird rares or anything like that. You're just running the ultras, which I think is one of the better looking ones. I think it's a pretty solid price for that card right now, especially because I think this card has a lot of potential to see play. especially as metas get more and more insane, people are adding more and more cards from their deck to their hand. Next up is Nib. I'm not too sure on the future use of this card because one, a lot of decks seem to be having in-engine ways to play around Nib right now, especially with like tiers having Rukalos now, which because they can get to before their 5th summon and negates a Nib actually, as well as Gigantic Sprite for sprites. A lot of decks are either like not even summoning 5 times, such as like Branded. And also, I don't know how often they're going to reprint this card. It's already gotten 3 reprints this year, I want to say, 2 or 3. So it's been reprinted quite a bit. It's very possible it sees like a super reprint in something else or whatever. So I would say for now, it's good to pick up the secrets if you can. Like, for, $4 to $5 is not that bad, especially if you don't already have the secrets. But I wouldn't like go out of my way particularly to find these cards. Next up is Imperm. Kind of a similar boat. It's been reprinted quite a few times already in the past couple years. Also, I don't know how often they plan on doing more reprints of this. I don't know if they plan on reprinting it as like a common in something or I don't know what. But right now, what's kind of interesting is that the Ultras, all version of the Ultras are about $8 to $9, while the Golds are still about $7 or $8. So they're roughly about the same price as the Golds, but people obviously are going to love the Ultras way more than they're going to love the Golds. So I think that right now, Ultras are not a bad pickup if you don't already have them. But pretty much every version of this card is roughly about $7 or $8. So I think that right now, even in general, they're just good cards to have. Next up is Droplet. The OG one is $33, which in my opinion is pretty cheap. Even though it's seen like 2 secret reprints on top of the initial printing, it was secret. It's still sitting at a nice $33, and it has I think 2 ultra reprints as well, and those are I think roughly like $20 each. So I think that most players tend to like the OG prints a lot more. So I think that actually Droplet is a really good pickup right now, just because $33 is pretty good for a really good card, especially as an OG print secret of a set that had very few printings. Another one I'm kind of unsure of is Tactics. Right now the Ultras are about $10. It's pretty nice actually for a pretty good staple. I'd say that like Tactics is one of those cards that like even in a hand trap heavy format it's really good, and in a non hand trap heavy format it's really good too, because I'd say it's good right now because you have like a lot of things that interact on your turn. So for example, the tier limits cards all interact on your turn as well. Even if they go first, all their stuff is activated on your turn, like the Rukalos, they're trying to trigger like another Merly or whatever to put like Draco Stapelia on board, Draco Stapelia, all that kind of stuff to like negate all your cards. So Tactics allows you to play through all that and also do stuff like take one of their monsters that hasn't even activated its effect yet or whatever. And then also in a very hand trap heavy format, Tactics is really good because if they hand trap you, you can look at their hand, you can draw 2 cards. If there's a hand trap that summons itself, you can take it. Like for example, like a Bistio, you can make like a Beatrice or something like that. So it's actually pretty crazy. I think that $10 is a pretty good card for a pretty good price for a card that's powerful. So I recommend picking those up. Also, Evenly, it has 2 printings that I think are ones to kind of like look at. One is the OG print secret, which right now I think is like $35 or $40 at the moment. But the other one is the non-OG secrets, the ones from the Megatin are about $20 right now, which I think is pretty good. This one I'm not sure of because if they end up reprinting this one as like a super or something like that, it might bring that price down even further, maybe like $10. So this is kind of like a middle of the line risk. But if you have Evenlies and you want to upgrade them, or if you just don't even have Evenlies at all, but you want like a solid version that won't see too much flexibility in price, I'd say that secret's not too bad. But obviously if you want to go the extra mile and pick up the OG print secrets, those are probably going to hold their value the best. Last on the list are the high risk, high rewards cards. I want to start this off with kind of the same way that we start off the bangers with Ash. The OG print right now is $55 from Maximum Crisis Secrets. That card, like 3 months ago, not even, was $110, $120 per copy. The fact that right now you can get a near mint first secret Ash for $55 OG print is actually pretty wild. The only reason why I consider this high risk, high reward is because right now Ash is bad in the format, so that's why the price is also tanking. If Ash goes really good in the format, you're looking at another $100 card again pretty easily, which means that you basically made a huge profit on your money. However, the only constraint I have with this card is that Konami has been reprinting a lot of the Ghost Girls on higher rarities, be it like ultis or Starlight rares, things like that. So for example, we had Starlight Belle, we had ulti Ghost Reaper, I think we had like another ulti at some point of one of the Ghost Girls or something like that. But overall, it's kind of a risk because if they end up printing a Starlight Ash, the secrets are going to go down again. If they end up printing an ulti Ash, same thing, it'll go down again, which I think is kind of likely. It just all of us are just kind of waiting on when, which is why I think a lot of people are selling their secret first Ash right now because they're unsure of the volatility of the card. And right now we have the prismatic secrets, which are actually pretty good looking and pretty affordable. So I could see why this one can either be a big hit or a big miss. Next up is Tactics, but for the Secret Pharaohs rare, right now it's about $110. I would say that that price is just a little bit too high for this card, but if you can find a good deal on it, like someone like your locals pulled it and they don't really know what to do with it, they just want to get rid of it, you can pick it up for like 90 bucks. I'd say that's not too bad. But once again, this is a high risk, high reward because the Secret Pharaohs rares tend to kind of go down in value. However, for Tactics, the next higher rarity above this is a Starlight rare, and that version is $750 or $800 per copy of that card, which is absolutely insane. Like, I'm a huge fan of high rarity cards, but I don't think I'll spend $2,500 on a play set of cards. So this is kind of like the next best one. However, I don't know how well this will end up doing. Let's just say if it gets like an ulti reprint, or if it gets like a CR reprint. I don't know kind of what like the different levels are in comparison to the Secret Pharaohs rare, so that's why I'm a little bit unsure. But however, if this ends up being one of the higher rarity versions, then 90 bucks will easily probably turn into like 130, 140, 150 when this card starts to see either more play or when people start to realize how rare the card is. And usually cards tend to stay around like a solid price while they're in rotation. Right now Mama is still in rotation, so once this kind of like leaves rotation, maybe like a year from now, I could see it jumping up to like 150 or even higher if this ends up being like one of the highest rarities of the cards aside from Starlight, and Starlight gets like way too out of hand. And lastly are the CRs from Tama. So I think that the CRs from Tama are hugely undervalued right now. You have cards like Scapegoat, $20 for collector's rare. That's insane. Even the ulti is like not even that expensive, like 80 bucks or something like that. But the CRs from this set actually look really nice in my opinion. I think that they really outshine a lot of the old CRs. So for example, the CRs from Genesis Impact kind of look pretty bad, to be honest. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I love that set because it had the Drytron stuff, and I love all the CR Drytron stuff, but like they could have done way better with CRs in that set. I think Tama was when they finally got their shit together and all the CRs actually look really nice. For example, CR Droll, in my opinion, looked better than the ulti, and I love ultis. I commonly call CRs the poor man's ulti, but CR Droll looks really, really nice in my opinion. So I would say that cards like that are really good pickups right now, especially if you don't want to spend like $500+ on a play set of ulti Drolls and you want like high rarity Drolls. CR is the next best thing. You can get 3 of them you can get a play set of CR Drolls for the price of 1 ulti Droll, so that's pretty insane. Not to mention cards that like, this is like some of their highest rarities for some of these cards. For example, Trap Trick, its highest rarity before this was a secret. Right now it's a CR, it's like 40 bucks, that's not bad. Anti-Spell Fragrance, same thing. It was like a secret before, I think, or some like promo secret, something like that. I think even back then that card was like 35-40 bucks per copy. Now the CR is like 40 bucks, so like why not just upgrade to CR at this point? It's like a lot of these cards would have to get like some like crazy rarity to outbeat these prices. So I think like a lot of these cards right now are really undervalued. But I'm talking about like specifically the cards that are like meta, like more like meta cards and more like staples, etc. Like for example Cosmic Cyclone. Like personally, in my opinion, this is one of the ones that kind of doesn't apply because Cosmic Cyclone CR I think is like 35 or 40 bucks. Personally, I like the Speed Duel Secret the best because I think it looks really clean. But like for example, like high rarity staple, I mean, it's a good card, it's a good price. I can't really go wrong with that. But more specifically, I'm talking about like not the runic stuff, not the labyrinth stuff. That stuff I feel like is a bit overpriced at the moment. But the rest of the stuff I feel like is a really good price. That pretty much wraps it up for today. Like I said, these are just cards that I've noticed on the market that I think are kind of undervalued. So if you want to pick them up or pick them up for like a friend, I think that's even good too, especially with the holidays coming up. Let me know what you guys thought. There's any of them that I missed in the comments below. So let me know if I saved you any money in the future. Leave a like. Please subscribe if you thought this video was helpful. And that's pretty much it. Have a good one.